He's playing like a man possessed. Rusty also took it one step further this week.
And so much to talk about. It's not this rugby union show. Welcome back.
Fantastic. I mean, this team, Evan, it's unbelievable. Following you guys, seeing what you're doing out there again tonight, Rassi. It's so lucky to be a Springbok fan. And of course, there's only one team that could have won this. And of course, there's three guys. Boks, Peter, won it twice before. But Malcolm.
Coming around the corner, Malcolm Marx is the IRB Player of the Year in the men's game. Wonderful for him. A good result from the Springboks, but sure, it was just drama in Dublin with a capital D. I think we've sorted out our technical gremlins as well. But Sim, firstly, it was good to see you yesterday. But when I saw you, neither of us would have had envisaged what we saw last night. That match was insane. I don't think I've seen anything like it. There were times I was really excited. I thought the start was amazing and, sort of flattered to deceive. And then it just all went, I won't say pear-shaped, because the Springboks did what they came out to do. They came out to dominate, and dominate they did, particularly in the scrums.
Yeah, quite a chaotic game. Like, I don't think, actually, let me put it this way. The last time I saw a game that chaotic was when we played against the Boks in the 7-1 split at Twickenham. This was just before the 2023 World Cup, our last warm-up game. And you remember they had a red card that, I don't know how many yellows, and we beat them by what was then the record margin. I think it was 35-7.
You mean the All Blacks?
Yeah, the All Blacks. The irony, of course, is that, take a wild guess who the ref was. Exactly the same guy. So Matt Carley is an absolute croupier when it comes to cards. He's just out there dealing, bro. Like, there you go. I mean, how many cards was that? That was 5 for them. Let me put it this way: 6 in total. One upgraded to a red. One rescinded. One rescinded because FS Simmons was rescinded. It was just absolute chaos. I couldn't keep count of the bloody players. Like, okay, how many players do they have now? So when I write a game, I do this whole how many points do the opposition concede if they've got a man in the bin? How many points do you concede during that time? Because that kind of tells you whether, the team with the advantage is exploiting it. And I just couldn't work it out. In the end, I couldn't work out, because they all overlapped. You had basically about 2 Irishmen in the bin at a time after the initial sort of 20-minute raid. But as much as we can, we can talk along those lines and go, geez, it was so chaotic. The ref was so, it was basically raining card confetti there and whatnot. The simple truth is, I'm not sure you can turn around and say the Irish ones were not deserved. That's the scary thing. They were deserved. With us, I found the penalty against Miney for celebrating a bit weird, but
But
it was that kind of game. You almost had to accept it. It's weird. Now that I've had time to think about it, I didn't write this. Now that I've had time to think about it, I think what happened there is Carly was given a complete video nasty of what Ireland do during a game.
Yes. Yeah.
And, just complete sort of watch, they do this, watch, they do that at this, in this area. And basically he came prepared for all of those shenanigans, because as great as Ireland are as a team, and as smart as Ireland, and this is really the important part, the word smart, as smart as they are, their smartness extends to bending the laws to the point of breaking. And they've always been like that. They've been like that forever. But it's one of the few times that a ref decided, you know what, actually, I'm going to call you on what you do instead of, what everybody else has called you on. So it was quite a weird game to watch. And of course, it takes a bit of the satisfaction away somewhat, because everyone's going to say, oh, you only won because the ref went card happy. But by the same token, they got what they deserved, because they've been like this for a very long time.
I know there's going to be a lot of chatter about it being unfair, just the sheer number of cards that was dished out. But I agree. I don't think that there was a card given that wasn't warranted. There were definitely a couple of opportunities to hand out more cards that were overlooked as well, I thought, during that match. And it sounds like we're trying to be one-sided in this convo, Sim. It started off, like I said, that match really, really well. There was that great try, probably the best passage of play from a Springbok perspective, to be honest. The forwards carried incredibly well. It was a nice, slick move that got Damien over. And I thought, wow, this is going to be one of those games. Maybe a little bit helter-skelter, but I didn't see it happening. But then after that, there was the Sasha Feinberg-Gomez-Zulu opportunity for a card, shall I say, and there was no arms in there. It looked like the contact was shoulder to shoulder, and I saw a couple of replays and a picture as well. But Sasha shouldn't be putting himself in that situation, and if he were carded, I wouldn't have been necessarily opposed to the idea. I wouldn't say it's a red card threshold at all, but certainly he put himself in a situation that he shouldn't have.
Look, I'm no ref, but I definitely thought it was a yellow. It was a definite yellow, because essentially what happened there is Sasha got into a bad position, and instead of checking himself, he basically carried on. He went through with the tackle, and that's what makes it look so ugly. In that if he'd basically just kind of like bailed, then you've got no real issues, because the player's already being tackled. But he decided to carry through and just kind of like swing his shoulder around. And, from that, yes, the initial contact was around probably shoulder or chest or whatever, but it did ride up and sort of hit him a glancing blow in the head, which is, why he got the penalty. But that was the thing about Sasha in total yesterday. He's a guy that's learning so rapidly, and obviously, there's no doubting his gifts. This guy, for me, is probably the most gifted South African rugby player I've ever seen. And that's obviously like from only X amount of years of watching. I'm sure somebody else would have a valid argument why somebody else is that person. But for me personally, and like I've got over 30 years worth of watching the game. But essentially the bigger point I'm trying to make is, I think when it comes to really, really big games, sort of must-win games, he still has a little bit to learn about how to manage his emotions. He's a guy that, it's quite interesting with Sasha. Sasha's only problem in life at the moment is that, A, he is exactly who he thinks he is because he's that gifted. But at the same time, he's not exactly who he thinks he is in a rugby context, because you can't win a rugby game by yourself. So it's like, yes, as much as you're like, I could win this game by myself, which he's shown against Argentina, just about. It's not always going to work out like that. So he now needs to get himself into a position where he kind of like learns to manage his emotions. It's weird. I kind of clocked it before the game started. I was looking at his face. It was tense. It was a weird little drill with Tony Brown, just kicking the ball back to Tony, and Tony was passing it to him. And there would have been like maybe she's at most 15 to 20 meters apart. So it was nothing keeps Sasha, but it was just the weird sort of concentration. I think Sasha's at his best when he's not overthinking things. And when he's not, disappearing up his backside about what he does need to do and not do. But yeah, I just that incident, A, he was very lucky, and then B, the Boks as a result were very lucky because, you put that incident, say, in the previous 2 games where there hadn't been a furore about a red card. A ref might have been thinking of a 20-minute red, they would have put him in the, in the bin and then, reconsidered it. And who knows, what the TMO might have ended up thinking. I think the fact that there'd been such a furore the week before about Franco Mostad's straight red, there was, the officials were also second guessing themselves. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think he was very lucky, and as a result, the Boks are very lucky.
Well, you're sort of making me think a different way about what I was going to ask you next, because I was going to go into the different incidents in the match, but you mentioned that word emotion, and I kind of think that when I look at both teams, possibly will look back at that match and think that we let the emotions sort of dictate what happens on the field. From an Irish perspective, I think they will, be happy that they never got run over despite losing so many players. To be down to 12 at a stage against the world champions, and what the Springboks can do, and still keep them out. There was some dogged defense in there. They can still feel like, yes, we lost in terms of the result, but we certainly have gained a measure of respect from these guys. And on the inverse, on the other side with the Springboks, I just thought, you know what, guys? This Irish team is incredibly physical. They're very emotional, and you need to chip away at them 3 points at a time until they go away. And I kind of felt like the Boks were trying to, make them go away with a magic pass and a lot of little cross kicks. And I thought, you're losing yourself the advantage of the men you've got on the field by trying so hard to go for this try. And I understand. There's definitely a pressure to put as many points on the board whilst the other team is down. Like you say, Sim, it's one of the measures that you use when you're writing a match, because you want to make sure that you take advantage of that man advantage. And I just thought the Boks also let the emotion get away with them a little bit, and they really just like overplayed it, man. Just take the three. Before you know it, there's going to be a 12-point margin, and then the tries will come. And that was a little disappointing, and I'm sure Rassie will have a word about that, though. I also think he'll be happy from an emotional point of view about actually finally getting a win in Dublin under the belt.
No, look, you want to talk about emotions. Let's start there with Rassie. He was apoplectic with rage at how his team was playing. There was a time he just kind of like threw, I don't know, whatever it was onto the table in the coach's box. And you saw how he came downstairs to change the front rows, because he was sitting there and he felt like, even though, a front row of Juan Fenta, Malcolm Marx and Thomas du Toit were well on top of the Irish of their Irish counterparts, he felt the Boks still weren't capitalizing. And that was less a thing about capitalizing at the scrum. It was exactly what you're talking about, which is capitalizing out wide after the scrum. But he just wanted a more direct route. So he decided to go, you know what, let me put on actually the props I consider to be the best props in the 23 or the bigger scrummages. I don't want to start disrespecting anyone in the Bok 23 or whatever. But anyway, when those guys came on, up came the penalty try from yet another scrum penalty. So the emotion, this is a thing. Like we talk about emotion. Emotion is important in rugby, because to get onto a rugby field, A, you got to be brave, and then B, you need to be physical. Those are things that you kind of like tap into from an emotional perspective which is why coaches give those speeches. Any given Sunday, the H's speech, that's why they give it, so that the guys are keyed up emotionally to get out there and, and stop being normal people and just start smashing into people. And so I understand that, but I think yesterday's emotion was quite nuanced in that this was the one team we haven't managed to beat. We've won 2 World Cups, 3 rugby championships, a British and Irish Lions series, but we've never really been on the right side of the ledger with these guys. So there was that desperation, and in a strange way, the old days when the Boks used to be on top of the All Blacks, and just couldn't put them away. It felt a lot like that, and it felt like it was almost like a fear from us. It was almost like we wanted to win it so badly that we almost didn't know how to go about it. It's not so much a matter of not knowing how to go about it. It's almost a situation of, we're willing to sort of go off script a little to try and get this done. Whereas if you look at say that game in Wellington this year in the Rugby Championship, the 43-10, the Boks have now gotten used to beating the All Blacks, having the upper hand on them and then putting it away. There, it wasn't just the ball being run from side to side. The forwards are still doing their job, and everyone is still doing their job the way they should do it. And the damn wall finally broke. So I 100% agree with you. The emotion got on top of us mainly because we wanted to win this so badly because of the history behind it. Obviously, you've mentioned it, Rassie having never won in Dublin. That's just weird. It's like, it's one thing to say he's got a bad record in Dublin, but never is a very strong. Yeah, and then, they'd beaten us 4 out of 5 times. Andy Farrell had beaten the Boks 3 out of 4 in his time there. And, there were all these numbers. We hadn't won in 13 years. And so you could see it caught up with the Boks a bit from an emotional perspective. And I think the Irish kind of like, they probably picked up a lot of their sort of source of motivation from that test in Durban, where in that first half, they were so physical that they stunned the Boks just with their physicality. But what a lot of people don't mention about that first half is that there was a fair bit of illegality as well. If you remember, Malcolm Marx did his ACL there from a croc roll, I think was it Caelan Doris?
It was Caelan Doris, I think.
Yeah, the Teflon Don himself. He is the new Richie McCaw. That guy. Listen, he's an incredible player. He's one of those players you look at and you go, you know what? I'd love to have a guy like this in the team, in my own team. I would hate for my team to play against him because he gets under people's skins. He is an absolute menace at right time, and not legally. He's always, half a yard offside in defense, but he'll carry all day for you. He'll do work at the line out. He'll try to steal ball. He does an awful lot of work. He's a great player, but geez, how he didn't get one of the yellow cards yesterday, I have no clue, because he was just filthy. But anyway, I think they had taken their cue from that's what it takes to beat the Boks. And unfortunately, this one time it didn't, it didn't get rewarded like it was the last time.
Well, listen, guys, drop us a comment. There are a couple that have come through already, and we value them. Love to hear from you, your questions, your opinion on what we're talking about. Alias, is it Gietz says, I agree, Sasha can consider himself very lucky. Definitely a yellow card. I'm sort of going in reverse order here because I want to finish off with the scrums. Samuel Mletis is saying the narrative that's being pushed around is that Ireland lost valiantly, that they were brave in their defense. We only kept our loss to South Africa to 11 points. I find that bizarre. So what Samuel here says is something that's echoed by Paul, who was also sending messages in the background saying, God, man, they never really had a chance. They were destroyed, and saying that they got the Spirit Award, basically. And look, I agree. I don't think that Ireland should have won that game, given how dominant the Springboks were and the opportunities the Boks had to put them away. So I do think it was, all things being equal, supposed to be a Springbok victory. It's just the way both teams got about to that final score that is worth talking about. All in the game, good to hear from you, saying 20 scrums in the game, 16 for South Africa, who won them all. Never seen a Tier 1 nation get scrummed like that in a while. 31 penalties. It's unbelievable. 18 for Ireland, 13 for South Africa. And I wanted to finish off there, Sim, because you mentioned something about the referee being wary to Ireland's tactics. I hate even being suggestive that they were, not following the rules because it's going to be, you said they were cheating. But there is a very definite way in which Andrew Porter scrums. There's a very definite way in which he tries to get the upper hand and literally under the opposition, tight head prop, and he's very, very good at it. There's a lot of little movement that happens there, especially with his bind and his arm, and is very good at it. And I think for most part, he doesn't necessarily get pinged for it. But I did think that Thomas was very wary to it, and there's a lot of scrum homework to do if you love watching scrums, because like All in the Game says, what are they? 20 of them to watch. And if you can, watch as many of them as possible. I just thought that Thomas was very good at remaining square, very good at trying to negate Porter getting in underneath him as well. And then they got pinged for it. And let it not be lost that there was a penalty try off a scrum at the end of the first half, which should have led to another yellow card. And I think it's probably a good thing the referee didn't, because uncontested scrums would have also negated that strength of the Springboks.
Yeah, Andrew Porter, G-Swing. You could write a book. You could write a book about what that guy does at scrum time. Listen, I'm no scrum expert.
Me neither.
But at the very least, I can see a backside when it's facing a touchline. I know that you're not supposed to scrum like that. That's one of the first things. He's always scrumming on the angle. Actually, yesterday, it's one of those weird things. When your scrum's backpedaling like that, some poor guy always gets it in terms of the yellow. It was strange. It was strange to actually have the right guy penalized for it, because it was Andrew Porter who was taking strain there big time in the scrum. And he basically committed every scrum crime you can imagine. He was hinging. He went tripod at one stage with his elbow. He slipped his bind, and obviously he scrummed in on the angle. Absolutely everything. One of the things that that gets spoken about Andrew Porter is what a beast he is in the gym. I remembered that writing, and I kind of like sat there and I thought, geez, these guys, these guys from the rest of the free world, they like, I don't know, they squat 300 and bench press 280 or whatever it is. I don't think anybody bench presses 280. I don't think anyone should. But anyway, they've got all these numbers. And then you got some guy sitting back here in Durban, who basically like says, salads don't win scrums, and he eats copious amounts of cake. And it hit me yesterday that bumping iron doesn't win scrums either, It's technique, Baba. You gotta get in there, you gotta get it sorted out. It was nice to see the right kind of punishment. I think Paddy McCarthy was just unfortunate. He's a young guy, talented. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're talented, whether you're not talented, whether you've got street smarts. If you come up against Volker Low, you've got big problems. It's that simple. And so Paddy McCarthy, I felt sorry for, because it was just an unfair situation. And I think by then their scrum, wasn't operating with the full 8 anyway. But the rest, I thought for once the scrum was called exactly the way it should be called, and they got blown away. And the impressive thing for me was the starting front row of Boan Venter, Malcolm Marx, and Thomas du Toit were expected to struggle against an all British and Irish Lions front row, which is Porter, Sheehan, and Ty Furlong. So for them to actually dominate those guys speaks absolute volumes about the strength and depth of the Springbok scrum. Yeah, because then you sit there, you've got roller skates on your bloody scrum, and it's going, it's stuck in reverse, and all you're doing is you keep going back, and you're sitting and you're thinking, oh shit, there's still Gerard Steenekamp and Wilco Low to come, and that's not going to make life, more comfortable. So, but to put the scrum into context, how dominant it was. 3 of our 4 tries came from the scrum. Kobus Reinach snipe and score, that came from a penalty advantage from a scrum. Sasha's try in the second half came from a penalty advantage as well, also from the scrum. And then the penalty try obviously came from a penalty at
scrum.
So that's how influential it was. But like what most of us probably didn't look at is the domino effect of having a pack going backwards for a team that likes to get rhythm in attack, like like Ireland. Sure, the yellow cards obviously don't help because suddenly you're missing people, and you just don't have the numbers you'd like to have in your attacking shape and whatnot, and therefore you can't execute. But just the sheer going backwards in that aspect of the game pretty much all the time, that kind of like ties you up. And that's before the yellow cards, that's before the defense, the Bok defense kind of deals with you, because that was the other thing that was actually quite good as well.
Yeah, Jules mentions it here, saying considering that it was a British and Irish Lions front row that got destroyed, it's quite a statement. And here's a question for somebody who's watching, who hasn't encyclopedic knowledge. When was the last time the Boks went unbeaten in a European tour? I'll give that some thought. And you have to consider... Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe somebody listening in does let us know. And you have to consider that there is, and Rassie did go through a list in his post-match press conference of the players that he's missed. I mean, he's counting 2 number 5 locks, which are very crucial to any team's scrum. Obviously, Oxenche, obviously Frans Malherbe, who hasn't really set foot on a rugby field in the longest time. And I think at the time that he went off, very few people would have argued that he's one of the top 2, 3 tight head props in the world. And I'm only saying that to be diplomatic, I think. France has been...
No. Let's sort this out right now.
Okay, let me not be diplomatic about it. Frans Malherbe is Frans
healthy. There's only one tight head in the world. And that's with apologies to even guys like Wilco, for me. And that's a big apology. That's a massive apology. 144 kilogram apology.
Thanks for bailing me out, because I'm trying to be diplomatic. Well, maybe but there isn't really another tight head prop in World Rugby who can do what Frans Malherbe does. Back to the comments. Apart from, this is back to Elias saying, apart from his try, Sasha had a bad game. His kicking out of hand, his goal kicking was bad. His goal kicking was bad. That thing of missing touch, I don't like. He also says his game management in general was poor as well, which is what Sim was talking about, a little bit of the game management. But on the opposite end of the scale of the field, I spoke up Pendergrast a little bit, said he's an exciting young talent. I expect to see him do some things, but the impact of a scrum that is going to get punished at every given opportunity means that you're not going to really go out and razzle-dazzle all that much, does it? You're not going to go for the Hail Mary cross-field kicks, because if a knock-on occurs, you're going to end up losing, who knows, 20 meters, 30 meters, or even points.
Well, it's exactly what you're saying. It's the domino effect. The reason rugby coaches always insist about winning collisions and therefore winning the gain line, it is the domino effect it has. There's a huge difference between going forwards and going backwards in rugby. If you're going backwards, there's very little you can do. If you're going forwards, guess what? There's so much more you can do. I get that comment about Sasha. Maybe he had too many options. Sometimes it happens. That's why sometimes some of the best halfbacks, when I say halfbacks, I mean 9s and 10s. Are loved by forwards who when they're going backwards can be bailed out by, say the scrum half's kicking game or the fly half's kicking game, just to give them a semblance of going forward. The whole point to rugby is going forward. And if you're not going forward, life is that much tougher for you. So Sam Prendergast, 22 years old, gifted as anything I've seen on a rugby field, and he will be an Irish great. Make no mistake. I don't care what they say about his defense and whatnot. He'll grow into that body. He's 1.93 meters tall. And then he's about 90, he's about 92 at the moment. So obviously he'll probably, if he fills out to about, say, close to 100 or even 100, suddenly you've got a guy who can look after himself physically. When the Damien Dialendes and the Sia Kolisi start running down his channel. So look, I mean, you can be as gifted as anything. If your pack is going forward, good luck.
Rabbit Jr. saying Ireland's persistent side entries and strange breakdowns made for negative rugby. South Africa should have sealed the game, especially with the lethal finishes like Colby, yet he barely touched the ball. That's right. I didn't see a lot of Cheslin Colby. There was an opportunity, for him. I think just one really decent opportunity for Cheslin during that game. I thought there was a nice little intercept of a pass that he made. And what I liked about it is when he intercepted that pass, it wasn't the usual where it leaves you wondering, oh my goodness, is the referee going to make a call? No, he jumped up man and all to make sure that it was very, very clear that he was going. And he almost had it, so a little bit unfortunate for him. But again, I want Cheslin Colby to be receiving the last pass. I want him to be receiving the last pass. And we didn't see that from the Springboks too much, Sim.
Yeah, look, I mean, it feeds into the narrative that maybe, we didn't execute particularly well. Remember, in the third quarter alone, I counted 4 instances where we could have scored tries. 4. We were turned over just before they try line. Kwagga was turned over just before they try line. Jasper Wiesler was held up for a maul.
And that was another moment of lack of patience being held.
Yeah, there was a fourth one. Jesse Creel was held up over the try line, which meant a goal line dropout. So what I'm saying is that was all in the third quarter, and so that alone tells you that the Boks weren't at the races in terms of executing their own attacking game. And look, it happens. I think we've kind of explained some of the reasons. We've already explained some of the reasons for why that happened. But actually, to go back to that, I'm not sure who it was that spoke about the rucks. Those guys at the ruck time. So all the Irish teams have this weird thing where, like, in a ruck, what they do in a ruck is the one thing they do legally is they'll wait until the scrum half is ready to. They'll wait until the scrum half is ready to pass, and then they'll give like a very very late counter ruck, and just to get people to flop on top of him, so that obviously he probably knocks the ball on. That's the first tactic. The second one is there's always a guy that flops on the side of the ruck, almost like, oh, I've just overbalanced and I've fallen over.
Oops.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if actually one of their own pushes him. But that always happens to the side where the scrum half is going to pass. Always happens on that side. Why don't they flop on the other side behind him? They always flop in front of him. That's got to be a tactic. And then, if you look at the ruck penalty that led to Ireland's only try, i.e., they kicked from that, and then from that rolling maul, Dan Sheehan then scored. If you look at that, I can't remember who it was, but there was an Irish player who basically took out a box cleaner and accompanied him all the way to the touchline. If you're taking out cleaners, what are you doing? You can't take out cleaners. You can take out someone who's contesting the ball. You can't take out a cleaner before he's got that. Yeah, and so and so it's all small little things like that. And then guys will stand there, and what they do is they wait for the ref to say, leave it. That's like 2-3 seconds. That's slow ball already. You might not get penalized. You should be getting penalized instead of getting told to leave it. And they do that. And then you get guys that just kind of stand there, It's like, dude, where are you standing? You're standing exactly in front of the scrum half, and you're not exactly not doing anything. And you saw Crowley getting sent to the sin bin for basically knocking the ball out of Reinach's hand. And so they are a team that does an awful lot of dirt at ruck time. And she's led by the new Richie McCaw, Kaelin Doris. They get away with a fair bit.
Okay, I see there was a debate going on about when South Africa last went unbeaten. Let me just see.
We forgot it already.
It was last year already, eh? Yeah, it was 2024. There we go.
We're getting old there.
We're getting old, 2024.
Who did we play last year? You see, I can't even remember who we played last year.
But before that, it was 2013. So there has been a pretty big gap since, in between. So outgoing tour, Paul's got it here. Our last year was victories over Scotland, England, Wales. Should be one more, shouldn't there? Shouldn't there be one more? Let's take a look.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's right, actually. I think it is right.
Scotland, England, Wales. Okay. All right. Well, unbeaten last year. That answers it.
That's pretty much the window, eh? If you think about it, that's pretty much the window. Remember, Japan was out of the window, and Wales will be out of the window, which then means there are 3 games that were in the window, which were France, Italy, and Ireland. So the window is a bit smaller than we think it is. So you can actually, that 3 games actually sounds about right. But geez, I'm getting so old. I've even forgotten last year already.
Well,
we write copious amounts of copy about rugby. Like you're always trying to keep up. And that's why, like, I have colleagues who love schools rugby as well. I'm just like, dude, I can barely remember my own son's name. And now he's saying I must remember other people's kids' names. I'm just like, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I was at a function at the Bulls this past week, and they were having club awards as well. And then you realize just how much rugby, I'm missing out on over the course of a year. I mean, you catch some of the Gold Cup stuff. But when it gets, to the serious end, and then there's the women's game as well, which is, sort of matching, almost match for match now, or team for team when it comes to club, which is great. There's a lot of rugby. It's almost too much to watch. So Samuel Mletisi, thank you so much for that. It was last year. I mean, the only 2 losses the Boks suffered were against Ireland, and then the one against Argentina last year. Those
1-point victories just to humble us, from
just to remind us. And then before that, as Paul said, it was 2013. There's a lot that I think is still going to be said about this match. I see we've been chatting for almost an hour already. It's unbelievable how fast the time flies. I know you're not going to be with us next week, but let's just quickly look ahead at Wales. They took on the All Blacks. They did come unstuck, which I think a lot of people had expected. They gave a little bit of a good account for themselves. I only watched highlights. I'm going to rewatch the match sometime this afternoon. The Springboks are going to lose a few players. The guys who play in Japan go back to Japan. The URC guys will get their Springboks back. So it's going to be, I think, a very different look Springbok team, maybe for the likes of a Porthen, Ethan Hooker. I thought Kanan did all right. He'll probably be back in there next week. But it's going to be, I think, a much changed team.
Yeah, it most definitely will be. And I just worry about it. I worry about the mentality of the Boks after, such a draining sort of run of games. Because I think the last 3 games have been incredibly hard at an emotional level for the Boks, because Italy wasn't supposed to be hard emotionally, but that red card did all the heavy lifting there, and as a result, it was suddenly a dogfight that they hadn't bargained for. But luckily, Rassie had rested guys, and the really cool thing about that was, in resting those guys, he kind of like battle hardened the next tier of guy for Wales, and as a result, obviously there'll be lots of changes. And Rassie obviously will try and hold on to as many of the experienced guys that that he can get. Suddenly you're going to get a guy like Akbongi Mbonambi, getting a chance. I'll be quite surprised. I know that they got Ntuthuko Mchunu
to come in. Yes,
to come in. He hasn't played for his new club yet, the Stormers. It'll be interesting to see if he actually, his first game back is for the Boks. That would be a bit of a risk, but we've been prattling on about this depth thing of ours and kind of like holding it up proudly and lording it over everyone for such a long time, that games like Wales are the games where you test that depth, because I think they're missing players too, if I'm not mistaken. So because
they will
out of the window, and so as a result, actually, I think it'll be a fair match. What I really probably mean is it'll be an unfair match. Still in favor of the Boks. Whether the Boks like it or not, they go in as heavy favorites there. And it's good to see Wales sort of, punching their own corner for a change. At one stage, I think Paul was getting really excited at 24-21.
He was. We saw a lot of excitement yesterday.
and then obviously, there are no miracles at the business end of international rugby. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, Nas Butta would always say fairy tales don't exist in sport.
Exactly.
And maybe that's a good parting shot is Rassie has, and he mentioned it in his press conference yesterday, used up to 50 players this year. And he also made a little announcement, I suppose you could call it, that he will revert to experimentation again next year. And it makes sense, it would be a year out from the World Cup. So that makes me feel very excited about the prospects of who we could see, because I expect one or two new faces and one or two younger players, and a little bit worried for some of the older guys, who might feel they didn't give as good account of themselves this season as they well could have. But it feels like going into 2026 will be a bit of a watershed, and I think there will be a little bit more of the changing of the guard.
Yeah, I think 2026 is probably going to be the last year to be able to experiment properly and kind of like have a look, see what you've got. But I think 3 of those games are probably out of the question in terms of experimenting, and that's the first three games of that All Black series. The greatest rivalry.
Yeah.
So I think they won't experiment if they 2-0 up. After the first 2 matches, they would be tempted to experiment because it's in South Africa, but there's still another game, which will be held overseas. So maybe I think those 3 games they're not going to experiment. The rest are going to experiment. And the truth is they need to experiment, because the problem for me with the Boks is it's cool. These, the players we have are all sort of the experienced players we have. So many of them are generational talents and whatnot, but they are at that age where you have no idea if their level of performance is going to fall off a cliff or not. And it doesn't matter how gifted they are, what generational talents they are. Father Time has no respect for anyone. And so that's why we need to kind of like make sure that we're putting caps into guys in case those guys suddenly cannot go to the next World Cup. And, a fair few of them won't be able to go to the World Cup. What you don't want is a massive disparity in terms of output between them and the next guy that comes in to fill that void.
Okay, Paul. Okay, you say the Kes boy is the best rugby player in the world. I'm good. All right, Kes boys. But well done to him.
Yeah.
Malcolm. Well done to Malcolm Marx and his award. And Samuel, okay, I'll give you the last one. Tonga against Scotland. He asked, do you think that Tonga can do it against Scotland today?
No.
No, I think the Scots are too good. Yeah, I think the Scots are too good.
Also, the Scots are smarting from, they're smarting from what happened last weekend. That was fun.
But hey, that was fun. But if it happens, but if it happens, Samuel, you'll remind us when we back on
again. I hope Samuel reminds me, but it will not happen. It will not happen.
Okay. There we go.
That Scottish side is a very good team.
It is a good team.
They experienced pretty much what we experienced against the Aussies. Got too far ahead and started thinking all they had to do was keep rolling the dice and things would happen. And then Argentina just basically went to type. And yeah. But anyway, that's one of those.
Oh, Elias, thank you very much.
I think Elias should get. I
don't know what I can give you. Like a high five.
You should get the last
one. You
should get the last.
Get the last one. Only 3 likes. That's right, Oaks. 3 likes is not cool, man. Do your bit. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you. Graham Townsend is under massive. Gregor Townsend is under massive pressure. But I think the Scots they should take today. And I don't know. I think Gregor Townsend has done very well for Scotland over the last few years. I don't know if a change would necessarily mean that that'd be better.
I think Gregor's issue is he's got one problem in his life. Well, he's got 2 now. It was 1 up until recently, and that problem was they have a guy like Franco Smith in their club structures, and so it's tempting to say, you know what? And the thing with Franco Smith is you have to remember. I think he won the URC like in his second season. Season as coach of the Warriors, and so
Glasgow.
They're kind of sitting there and thinking we already have a great platform, and this is a coach who has coached internationally with the Italians, and so it wouldn't actually be. He now understands Scottish sort of mentality, traditions, whatever you want to call it. He understands the Scottish psyche, and therefore he can make that last step that they need to make, which they haven't been able to make under Gregor. That's the only problem he has. It's the temptation to run with somebody who's already in their systems, especially when that person keeps getting phone calls from the Bulls or the Sharks, which is really the case, who want him to come down here. The only way you can entice a guy like Franco Smith is to give him an international job right now. I don't think winning the URC again is gonna do anything for him. If he wants to win the Champions Cup, he can actually try and do it with the Glasgow side, because they're good enough to have a decent crack at it. Maybe they don't have the budget. But as a team, they're good enough. They're well coached enough, and they've got good enough players to be able to do it. And then Gregor's second problem is that Red Bull contract that has been talked about of late. I don't know if he's signed already. If he has signed, then people are kind of sitting and going, "Oh, he's distracted. Why doesn't he just go now?" Then, if that's the case, so that's the only problems he has. But in terms of performance itself, sure, maybe there aren't big results over a team like, say, South Africa, and then there's a shock result. For many people, losing to Argentina for Scotland is a shock, because that's the Northern Hemisphere sort of psyche that, they always think they're better than they are. But that just basically means you haven't been watching Argentina. It's that simple.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to call it there. It's been a great chat, Sim. Always good. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in the convo. Keep it going. Love to keep the conversation going and reading the comments afterwards. And do give us a like as well. If you like this video, make sure that people see it who might enjoy this kind of convo. Sim, I won't be seeing you next week, but I will be hopefully next weekend. Enjoy a bit of downtime, and I'll have a stand-in for the coming week.
I just need to lie down. I'm almost 50.
I get it. No, I get it. You look 30, my brother. You're good. Thanks, everyone. Hey guys, if you like what you see and you want to support the show, we want you to be part of That Rugby Union Show family. Then just hit the like button, subscribe to the show, tell your friends, make sure you join us every time we're on. Slap that bell harder than Rassifiance loopholes in World Rugby's rulebook. There are new episodes every week. Don't miss it. Welcome back to That Rugby Union Union Show. Well, what a week it's been.
He's playing like a man possessed.
And so much to talk about. It's not this Rugby Union Show. It's That Rugby Union Show.